You're welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to be looking at consideration, another essential of a valid contract. So for a contract to be valid, there must be consideration. So consideration is defined as a benefit acquired by one party or a detriment suffered by another. So it is something of value that one person gives to another in exchange for a promise. So it can be a benefit received or a loss suffered. That is consideration. So if you go to the shop, for example, and pay 2,000 for a bottle of water, the consideration for the shopkeeper is the 2,000 you've given, and the consideration for you is the bottle of water. This was seen in the case of Curry versus Misa. And for this case, Mr. Curry was a businessman who sold goods and services, while Mr. Misa was a banker who agreed to pay some of money to Curry. So Misa's bank gave a check to Curry. However, before the check was cashed, Misa found out that Curry's business partner had some unpaid debts. So because of this, Misa stopped the payment, refusing to honor the check. So Curry sued Misa, arguing that he was entitled to receive the money. So court had to determine whether Misa had the legal obligation to pay Curry based on the check, or whether Misa had the right to refuse payment. So court ruled that for a contract to be enforceable, there must be consideration or something of value to be exchanged between the parties. So in this case, there was no consideration to be exchanged between the parties because Misa just agreed to pay a sum of money to Curry, but there was nothing they were exchanging. So there was no consideration. So briefly, consideration is something which is of value to you, which I give you to buy your promise. If you make me a promise but I do not give you your consideration, your promise is gracious or it is a free promise. Generally, the law does not impose a contractual obligation on a person who makes a free promise. So we have types of consideration. They are three. We have the executory consideration, executed consideration, then past consideration. Let's look at the distinction between executory and executed consideration. Consideration is said to be executory where there is an exchange of promises to perform acts in the future. So for executory, the action will be done in the future, or performance will be done in the future. Then for executed is when the promisee does an act in return for the promiser's promise. So for executory, this occurs when both parties make promises to perform acts in the future. So the contract is binding, but obligations are yet to be fulfilled, but not yet fulfilled. So it is common in agreements where there is delivery or where payments happen later. For example, you order a laptop online and you promise to pay upon delivery. So that is an executory consideration. Then for executed, this happens when one party has already performed their obligation in exchange for the other one's promise. So the act serves as consideration. One party has already performed their part. This happens, for example, you visit a barber shop, you get a haircut and then pay immediately. That is executed. One party has already done their part, so that the only remaining party is to get paid. So the barber provided the service, which is executed consideration, and then you paid for it. So the contract is complete once you pay. So for executed, one party has already performed their act and they are just waiting for the other one to fulfill their promise. Then for executory, both parties agree to perform acts in the future. Yeah.